Victor Ellison was elbow-deep in a rusted pipe beneath a marble sink when the silence of the mansion's kitchen was broken by a soft creak overhead. He paused, listening. Nothing. Just the groan of the old plumbing and the light snore of his 8-year-old daughter, Eden, curled up on a blanket in the corner. He'd brought her with him, there was no one else to watch her tonight, and he couldn't afford to miss another job. He wiped his brow with the back of his wrist and went back to tightening the joint, muttering to himself. They don't pay me enough to crawl under gold-plated sinks. The job came through a friend of a friend. Emergency leak, big house, big tip, they said. But no one mentioned it was on the edge of Ridgeview Heights, where the mansions looked like castles and the gates alone could feed a family for a year. He never met the owner. The housekeeper let him in and disappeared upstairs after motioning toward the leak. Midnight work, no questions asked? That was fine with him. He didn't care who owned the place as long as the check cleared. What Victor didn't know was that the woman descending the grand staircase in silk heels and a navy trench coat was the owner. Or that she'd spent the last 3 weeks trying to track him down. Vivienne Hartley froze in the hallway when she heard a laugh, bright, young, and unmistakably a child's, and then a man's voice, low and gentle. Her heart skipped. She stepped quietly toward the kitchen, heels clicking softly on polished hardwood. He hadn't seen her yet. She leaned against the doorway and saw him kneeling under the sink, sleeves rolled up, dark hair messy, grease on his jaw. And right beside him, a little girl in an oversized hoodie, brushing her doll's hair with a toothbrush. "Oh my God!" Vivienne whispered. She hadn't seen him in 9 years. Not since he walked away from her at 21, carrying a duffel bag and a broken heart. They were kids. She was the daughter of a real estate tycoon, and he was the boy from the wrong side of town who did maintenance on their summer home. Her father hated him. Threatened him. And Victor, always too proud, had left without a word. But she never forgot him. And now, here he was. In her mansion. Fixing her pipes. And he didn't recognize her. Victor stood up and stretched. "All right, Edie, I think we're good. Let's pack up and go home. Daddy, look!" Eden held up her doll, whose hair was now a tangled mess. "She's ready for her date." He laughed. "Poor guy. He doesn't know what's coming. That's what you said about Mr. Peterson's sink." She giggled. Vivienne stepped into the light. "I hope your daughter's not giving away trade secrets." Victor turned and froze. She looked different. Softer. Her hair was pulled back, her face bare of makeup. But those eyes. Those same eyes he used to look into when they were 17 and thought love was enough. "Vivienne?" He sounded like he didn't believe it. She smiled. "Hey, Vic." He blinked. This is your house?" "Yeah." He looked around like he was seeing the place for the first time. "I didn't know. I thought you were in Europe, or I was. I came back last month." Eden looked up at her dad. "Daddy, who's she?" Vivienne knelt. "I'm Vivienne. An old friend of your dad's." Eden tilted her head. "You're really pretty." Vivienne grinned. "So are you." Victor ran a hand through his hair. "Look, Vivienne, I'm just here to fix a leak." "I didn't know, I know," she said quickly. "You didn't do anything wrong." He nodded, unsure of what to say. "We should go." "Wait." She hesitated. "Have dinner with me tomorrow. Both of you." Victor raised an eyebrow. "Dinner? I think we have a lot to talk about." He looked down at Eden, who was now holding Vivienne's hand like they'd known each other forever. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why?" "Because I don't live in this world anymore, Vivienne. I don't belong here." She looked at him, eyes hard but hopeful. "Maybe this time you do." Back in their tiny apartment above a laundromat, Eden was asleep the moment her head hit the pillow. Victor stared at the ceiling, thoughts racing. He hadn't seen Vivienne since before Eden was born. He never told her about the baby. Never told anyone. When Eden's mom left before she could crawl, Victor raised her alone. Working odd jobs, fixing what he could, surviving. There was no room for memories of a girl with diamonds in her drawers and a last name people whispered like royalty. But now she was back. And she looked at him like she still saw him. The next evening, he stood outside the mansion again, Eden holding his hand in a pink dress she'd picked out herself. "Do I look fancy?" she asked. "You look like a princess." She beamed. The front door opened before he could knock. Vivienne stood there in a deep blue dress that hugged her waist and fell soft over her knees. Her hair was down. She looked like a dream. "You came," she said. Victor nodded. "Only because Eden wanted to." "Sure," she said, smiling. Inside, the dining room table was set for 3. Crystal glasses, flickering candles, soft music in the background. Eden gasped. "It's like a movie!" Vivienne laughed. "I hope you're hungry." They ate slowly, comfortably. Eden chattered about school and her doll's imagined adventures. Vivienne listened like every word was gold. Victor watched them both and felt something twist in his chest. After Eden went to the living room to watch a movie, Vivienne poured 2 glasses of wine and led Victor to the balcony. The city lights spread out below them. The air was cool. "You didn't tell me," she said softly. "Tell you what?" "That you had a daughter." He exhaled. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again. I looked for you, you know." He glanced at her. "Why?" "Because I never stopped thinking about you." He stared at the glass in his hand. "I didn't leave because I wanted to," she added. "He threatened you. My father said he'd ruin your life. I begged you to stay. You begged me not to fight him. I wanted to protect you. I didn't need protecting. I needed you to believe in me." She stepped closer. "I did. I always did." He looked at her, really looked at her. "Why now, Vivienne? Why reach out after all this time?" "Because I'm not that girl anymore. And you're not that boy. And maybe we get a second chance." He didn't answer right away. His heart was pounding. "Do you still feel it?" she whispered. He didn't need to say anything. The way he looked at her said it all. And then, slowly, he leaned in and kissed her. It was soft, warm, familiar. And it felt like coming home. Victor didn't sleep that night. The moment he closed his eyes, he felt the press of Vivienne's lips again, the taste of wine between them, the way her fingers rested lightly on his jaw like she was afraid he might vanish. He lay awake long after Eden had curled up beside him, her small hand tucked into his, her curls brushing his arm. He told himself it didn't mean anything. That it was a flicker of something old, misplaced in a world that didn't exist anymore. But he knew better. The next morning, he found a note slid under their door. No name. Just an invitation in script he recognized instantly, with an address scrawled beside it. A different one than the mansion. He looked it up on his phone. An art gallery in the heart of the city. Grand opening. Tonight. Eden was already up, sitting cross-legged on the floor, coloring a paper crown. "Did someone leave us a treasure map?" she asked, eyeing the envelope. Victor folded it and tucked it into his back pocket. "Something like that." He took her to school, then headed to his day job at a construction site on the south side. He spent the afternoon hauling drywall and trying not to think about the way Vivienne's eyes had searched his face like she was memorizing him all over again. By the time the sun dipped behind the skyline, he'd made up his mind. He picked Eden up, dropped her at his neighbor's with a bag of snacks and her favorite book, and told her he wouldn't be long. He didn't know if that was true. The gallery was already buzzing when he arrived. Spotlights swept the sidewalk. A red carpet stretched from the curb to the marble steps, where photographers jostled for shots of men in tailored suits and women draped in silk and jewels. He hesitated across the street, hands in his pockets, sweat dampening his collar despite the cool night air. A valet glanced at him, confused. Victor wasn't dressed for this. He owned exactly one blazer, which he hadn't worn since Eden's kindergarten recital. Still, he crossed the street and climbed the steps, ignoring the sidelong looks. No one stopped him. Inside, the galleries shimmered. White walls gleamed beneath golden lights. Massive canvases hung in perfect symmetry, each one abstract and bold. Waiters circled with silver trays, offering champagne and tiny bites that looked like art themselves. And then he saw her. Vivienne stood near a sculpture in the center of the room, speaking with an older woman in a floor-length velvet gown. Her hair was swept to the side, revealing a line of pearls at her throat. She wore black tonight, a sleek silhouette that made her look impossibly tall. She spotted him before he could turn away. "Victor!" she called softly, excusing herself and crossing the room. "I'm not sure I belong here," he said. "You came. You invited me." She smiled faintly. "I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. But you did." He glanced around. "Is this yours? The gallery?" "No. But the exhibit is. I curated it." He raised an eyebrow. "Didn't know you were into art." "I wasn't," she said. "Not until I moved to Florence. Things change." He nodded slowly. "You're full of surprises." She stepped closer. "I want to show you something." He followed her through the crowd into a smaller, private room near the back. The lighting was softer here, the walls lined with only a few pieces. One of them, a charcoal drawing, stopped him cold. It was of him. Not a photograph. Not exact. But unmistakably him. The shadow of his jaw, the shape of his hands, the way his shoulders curved forward when he sat deep in thought. He hadn't looked like that in years. Younger. Lighter. "You drew this?" "No," she said. "A friend did. I described you. From memory." He looked at her. "Why?" "Because I couldn't forget." He turned away. "Vivienne, I need you to understand something," she said. "My life now, it's not what it used to be. I don't live under my father's thumb anymore. I built this on my own. Every piece, every show. I didn't inherit it. I fought for it." He didn't answer. "I'm not asking for anything," she added. "Not yet. But I wanted you to see this. To know that I never stopped wondering where you were. Or what happened to you." He exhaled. "My life's not like this. I work in boiler rooms, Vivienne. I fall asleep with a wrench in my hand. You also raise a daughter with more grace than most people raise empires." He looked away again. "You don't know what it's like." "You're right. I don't. But I want to." There was a long silence. "I should go," he said finally. "Victor, I don't belong in a room like this. But thank you. For the drawing. For remembering." He turned and walked out, heart pounding. Outside, the valet eyed him again, but this time said nothing as Victor disappeared down the street. He didn't notice the man watching him from across the avenue, hidden in a black car with tinted windows. Inside that car, Martin Hartley tapped a finger against the leather armrest. "Well, well," he murmured. "So that's where she's been disappearing to." He picked up his phone and made a call. "Get me everything you can on Victor Ellison. I want to know where he lives, where he works, and what he wants from my daughter." Back in her gallery, Vivienne stood alone in the back room, staring at the drawing. The memory of Victor's expression lingered in her mind, part awe, part sorrow. A look she hadn't seen since the summer before everything broke. She touched the edge of the frame. This time, she wouldn't let him slip away. But she had no idea her father had just set something in motion that could destroy them both. And that the man she was falling for all over again might be forced to walk away a second time. Victor sat on the worn bench outside the community center, elbows on his knees, hands clasped to keep them from shaking. The wind carried the scent of wet asphalt, and the faint trace of roasted peanuts from the vendor across the street. It was late, Eden was asleep at the neighbors upstairs, and he couldn't shake the feeling crawling beneath his skin. "I don't belong in her world," he muttered, as if saying it out loud would make it true. But the truth was more complicated. He'd kissed her. And she'd let him. And now the fragile line he built between the life he had and the one he left behind was unraveling thread by thread. His phone buzzed in his pocket. An unfamiliar number. He let it ring out. Then it buzzed again. Another number. Still unknown. He stood up, pacing. A man in a pressed coat stepped out of the shadows across the lot. "Victor Ellison?" Victor turned slowly, wary. "Yeah?" The man handed him a cream-colored envelope, sealed with a wax insignia. "From Martin Hartley." Victor stared at the name like it was a ghost. The man walked away before Victor could speak. He opened the envelope. Inside was a single card. Heavy stock. Embossed with a time, a location, and nothing else. No explanation. No signature. Just a silent summons. He crushed the card in his fist. The last time he'd heard that name, he was 19 and being told he wasn't good enough to breathe the same air as Vivienne. He hadn't forgotten the threat. Or the look in the man's eyes when he made it. But this time, he wasn't a teenager with nothing to lose. He was a father. And he wasn't about to let anyone tear his life apart again. The next morning, he dropped Eden at school, then rode the subway to the address on the card. Midtown. A private building with mirrored windows and a doorman who didn't ask his name but held the elevator open like he'd been expected. The penthouse stretched the length of the entire top floor. Sleek, cold, and impersonal. Victor stepped inside and found Martin Hartley seated behind a glass desk, city skyline behind him. "Victor," the man said without looking up. "You're older than I expected." Victor didn't sit. "You haven't changed a bit." Martin looked up then, measured and detached. "I see you've been reacquainted with my daughter." "I didn't plan to." "But you kissed her." Victor didn't flinch. "That's between me and Vivienne." Martin stood and crossed to a bar cart, pouring 2 fingers of scotch. "No, see, that's where you're wrong. Nothing involving my daughter is ever just between her and anyone." Victor's jaw tightened. "If you called me here to threaten me again, don't waste your breath." Martin leaned against the cart. "No threats. Just clarity. I'm listening. I don't care who you were. I care what you are now. A man with a child. A man who works with his hands. Who lives in a neighborhood my driver won't even turn into after dark." Victor stepped forward. "You think a zip code defines me? I think my daughter deserves a world without limits." "And you?" He paused, taking a slow sip. "Are a limitation." Victor's voice dropped. "You don't get to decide what she deserves." Martin set the glass down. "I'm offering you something you can't give her. Distance. Permanence. Protection. And what does that cost?" Martin walked to a drawer, pulled out a folder, and placed it on the table. Victor opened it. Inside were documents. A check. A number that made his heart stop. Enough to change his life. Eden's life. Forever. "You're paying me to walk away. I'm giving you a chance to provide your daughter with something better. Without dragging Vivienne into your mess." Victor closed the folder. "I've never taken money to disappear," he said. "There's a first time for everything." Victor turned and left without another word. Outside, the air felt different. Colder. Like the sky was watching him. By the time he got back to the apartment, Eden was already home from school, sitting on the couch drawing a picture of a lion with a crown. She looked up, face lighting up. "Daddy, look. He's a king lion. Like you?" He crouched beside her, brushing a hand over her curls. "You think I'm a king? You fix things. You make monsters go away. That's what kings do." He kissed her temple. "You're the real queen around here." Later that night, he sat in the dark kitchen, the folder from Hartley spread out before him. He could pay off everything. Move them somewhere safe. Eden could go to a better school. She could have more than second-hand books and nights with no heat. But Vivienne's eyes haunted him. The way she looked at him like he wasn't just a memory. She hadn't offered him money. She'd offered him the truth. He picked up the folder. Tore it in half. Then again. Then again. The next day, he showed up at the gallery without calling. Vivienne was alone in the main room, rearranging a sculpture. She turned, surprised. You okay? I saw your father. Her expression darkened. What did he say? He offered me a way out. And? Victor stepped closer, voice low. I tore it up. She let out a shaky breath. He's not going to stop, Vic. He doesn't lose. Neither do I. She looked at him, eyes fierce. I'm not letting him decide my life again. I'm not letting him decide mine either. She reached for his hand. Then we face him together. He nodded once. But deep inside, he knew Martin Hartley wasn't finished. And the next move wouldn't come with a check. It would come with consequences. Rain lashed the windows of the gallery as the storm rolled in off the bay, the wind pressing against the glass like it wanted inside. The building had emptied hours ago, but Victor remained, standing near the window in a shirt that still smelled faintly of sawdust and rain. His shoulders were stiff, his jaw locked with tension he hadn't let settle even after leaving Hartley's penthouse. Vivienne pulled the last chain on the display lights, leaving the room in a wash of amber shadows. You haven't said anything since you walked in, she said, her voice quiet but not uncertain. I needed time to think. She crossed the room slowly, stopping beside him. Do I want to know what about? I'm not sleeping much lately, Victor said. Every time I close my eyes, I see what could happen to Eden if I make the wrong choice. Vivienne's expression softened, but she didn't reach for him. I know that feeling. When I moved back to the States, I laid awake every night wondering if it was a mistake. If I'd built a life that only looked good from the outside. He turned to face her. There's something I need to ask you. And I don't want you to answer unless you're sure. All right. Why did you really come back? Not just to see me. What brought you home? Vivienne's face flickered with something unreadable. My mother left me a letter. She died last year. Victor's throat tightened. I didn't tell you before because it still feels. She trailed off. She'd written it years ago. Said if I ever wanted to know who I was without my last name, I had to come back and rebuild something on my own terms. She told me to find what felt real. He watched her carefully. And this? All of this me, Eden, is it real for you? Vivienne looked at him without flinching. You're the only thing that ever was. Victor reached into his coat pocket and unfolded a slip of paper. It was crinkled damp at the edges. He handed it to her. She read it, her brow furrowing. What is this? A lease. I found a place. A real one. 2 bedrooms, a backyard. It's not much, but it's ours. Her eyes flicked up to his. You're moving? I'm not running. I'm building something better. For Eden. And maybe, if you want it, for us. Vivienne folded the paper carefully, holding it like it was something precious. I want it. Victor exhaled, brushing a hand through his hair. There's more. Vivienne waited. I got a call today from a guy I used to work for. He's expanding his business. Wants someone to manage site operations. Full salary, benefits. It's not plumbing anymore. It's something bigger. Her lips parted. That's amazing. I'm thinking about saying yes. But I don't want to do it halfway. If I take this job, I'm not just patching leaks anymore. I'm showing Eden what it means to stay. To commit. Vivienne stepped closer. Then take it. And let me help. Victor searched her face. You're sure you want to be part of this mess? She let out a quiet breath. If you think this is a mess, you haven't seen the disaster I was before I found you again. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room in a burst of silver. The moment held like breath before thunder. Then Victor stepped forward and pulled her into his arms. It wasn't like the kiss from before. This one was deeper. Certain. The kind that made time stop. When they pulled apart, Vivienne whispered, Come with me tomorrow. Where? To speak with him. My father. We do it together. No secrets. No more hiding. Victor hesitated. He won't listen. Then he'll watch us walk past him. The next day, they stood in front of the Hartley estate, black gates, stone lions, everything exactly as Victor remembered it. Only this time, he wasn't wearing a tool belt, and he wasn't alone. Vivienne's grip on his hand was firm as they approached the door. Martin answered himself, as if he'd known they were coming. He looked between them, impassive. If this is about the envelope. Vivienne cut him off. It's not. It's about boundaries. His eyes narrowed. I see. No, you don't, she said. You've spent your life trying to control mine. But I'm not asking your permission anymore. Martin glanced at Victor. So you've chosen him. I chose myself. And in doing that, I chose him. We're not asking for your blessing. Only your silence. Martin's jaw tightened. You think I'll just stand by while you drag this family's name through? There's no family left to protect if it means sacrificing what matters, she said. You made your choice years ago. Now I'm making mine. Victor didn't speak. He didn't need to. Martin stepped back, tension radiating from every line of his body. He closed the door without another word. Outside, Vivienne let out a long breath. That was harder than I thought. Victor laced his fingers with hers. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. I needed to see it through. For me. They drove back into the city. Eden was waiting with her neighbor, who handed her off with a smile and a stack of glitter-covered paper hearts. As they walked toward the new apartment, Eden tugged on Victor's sleeve. Is she going to live with us now? Victor looked at Vivienne. Vivienne knelt beside Eden. Only if you want me to. Eden nodded solemnly. You know how to make grilled cheese? The best, Vivienne said. With tomato soup. Eden beamed. Okay. You can stay. That night, the three of them sat on the floor of the new apartment, surrounded by unopened boxes and mismatched furniture. Victor leaned against the wall, Vivienne curled beside him, Eden asleep in her lap with the crayon still clutched in her hand. Victor looked around the room. The paint was chipped. The faucet in the kitchen dripped. The heater rattled when the wind hit it wrong. But it was home. And in that moment, he realized he hadn't just rebuilt his life. He'd found the piece he didn't know was missing. Vivienne looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. We're going to be okay. He pressed a kiss into her hair. No, he said. We're going to be better than okay. And for the first time in years he knew it was true. It was raining again, the kind of steady drizzle that painted the sidewalks silver and turned the city into a blur of umbrellas and reflections. Inside the new apartment, the air smelled faintly of cinnamon and old wood. The heater clanked twice before settling into a low hum, barely drowning out the quiet laughter coming from the living room. Vivienne sat cross-legged on the rug, her hair pulled up messily with a pencil jammed through it, while Eden climbed onto her lap holding a half-built cardboard castle. Victor leaned against the kitchen counter, watching them as he stirred a pot of pasta, the sleeves of his Henley pushed up to his elbows. I think the Queen needs a dragon, Eden announced, holding up a glitter-covered paper cone with pipe cleaners twisted into wings. Vivienne raised an eyebrow. I thought the Queen was supposed to be peaceful. Peaceful queens still need dragons, Eden said matter-of-factly. To scare away the boring people, Victor called over his shoulder. Well, in that case, we better build two. Vivienne smiled, adjusting Eden's castle wall. You know, I never thought I'd be doing this. Victor set the spoon down and walked over, crouching beside them. Building castles? No, she said, looking at him. This. Sitting on the floor with a little girl and a man who somehow makes everything feel like it's exactly where it's supposed to be. Eden leaned into her. You're part of the castle now. You can't leave. Vivienne kissed the top of her head. I'm not going anywhere. Later that night, after Eden was tucked into bed with her dragon guarding the pillow and her cardboard kingdom surrounding her like a fortress, Victor stepped out onto the small balcony with Vivienne wrapped in a throw blanket beside him. The city glowed below, rooftops glistening from the rain. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice quiet against the wind, "about what we're building here." He glanced at her. "You mean the castle in the living room or the life we accidentally started rebuilding?" She laughed softly, resting her head against his shoulder. "Both. But mostly the second one." Victor wrapped an arm around her, pulling her closer. "I don't really know the rules for this kind of thing." "Neither do I," she admitted. "But I think we make our own." He looked out at the city. "I keep expecting something to go wrong. Like I'm going to wake up and realize I imagined all of this." "You didn't," she said firmly. "We're here. You, me, Eden. It's real. Do you think your father will give up?" Vivienne's fingers tightened around the blanket. "He already lost. He just doesn't know it yet." Victor turned to face her. Rain beaded on the railing behind her, the light from the window brushing her cheek like a kiss. "I don't want to lose this. Not again." "You won't," she said, meeting his gaze. "But if we're going to do this, really do it, I want to be in it completely. Not just visiting the edges of your life." "Then move in," he said without hesitation. "Not just your books and your clothes. All of it. You. Stay." Her eyes softened. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." That weekend, Vivienne packed the last of her things from the penthouse she hadn't truly lived in since returning. She left behind the crystal vases, the untouched wine cellar, the imported rugs. What she took instead were 3 photo albums, a box of paints, and a framed drawing from the gallery, the one she'd had made from memory. The one of Victor. They painted the apartment together. Eden chose the colors: sky blue for the living room, lavender for her bedroom, and a deep green for the hallway because, according to her, hallways are where adventures start. They filled the kitchen with mismatched dishes, the bathroom with towels that never stayed on their hooks, and the walls with pictures, candid ones, messy ones, real ones. One evening, as they were putting together a bookshelf that refused to stay upright, Victor looked up from the chaos and said, "So, I was thinking. There's something we haven't talked about." Vivienne turned, holding a screwdriver. "If it's about the bookshelf, I already know. It hates us." "No," he said, voice suddenly quieter. "I meant something else." He reached into the back pocket of his jeans and pulled out a small velvet box. Vivienne froze. He opened it slowly. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, a delicate band of white gold with a single diamond that caught the light like fire. "I don't have a yacht," he said, "or a plane. But I have something more important. I have a life I want to share with you. Every day. Raising Eden. Fighting over paint colors. Burning dinner and laughing about it. I want all of it with you." Vivienne blinked, her breath catching. "Are you asking me to marry you while kneeling on a pile of IKEA instructions?" He smiled. "I'm asking you to marry me right here. In our home. Where it matters." She dropped the screwdriver, cupped his face in her hands, and kissed him so fiercely that he nearly forgot to breathe. "Yes," she whispered against his mouth. "Yes, 1,000 times." They married under a canopy of string lights in the backyard of their new home the following spring. Eden was the flower girl, tossing petals with the seriousness of royalty. Their closest friends packed into the yard, laughing and cheering as Victor and Vivienne said their vows barefoot in the grass. Martin Hartley did not attend. But a letter arrived the next week, short and signed, with only one line: "She looked happier than I've ever seen her." Victor didn't say anything. He folded the letter once, placed it in a drawer, and never spoke of it again. Years later, on a warm evening with the windows open and Eden sprawled on the couch with a book much too advanced for her age, Vivienne walked into the kitchen and wrapped her arms around Victor's waist as he stirred a pot of soup. "Do you ever think about how close we came to missing this?" she asked. He turned, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "I think about how lucky I am every single day." She leaned into him, smiling. This still feels like a dream. He kissed her forehead. Then let's never wake up. And they didn't. Not from the love. Not from the life they built. Not from the quiet joy of knowing they had chosen each other not once, not twice, but every single day for the rest of their lives.